I'm back today with some underrated horror film recommendations for the streaming service Shudder. Shudder is a horror streaming service. They have so many horror films on there. They do also have some thrillers and some other genres, but it is mainly horror films. Because they have such a big catalogue, it can be hard to know what to watch. So I have a few suggestions today, and I've also done a few other videos on underrated recommendations for Shudder. So I will leave them all in a playlist so you can check them all out. Starting off with a horror comedy called You Might Be the Killer. This film is set at a summer camp. It is a summer camp slasher. The camp counselors start getting killed off, so it's kind of a mystery trying to figure out who is the killer. Sam is the lead camp counselor and he's trying to figure out the mystery of who is doing this to try to save his colleagues. So he decides to phone his slasher-obsessed friend to ask for some tips in working this out. This is quite a short film at only 92 minutes long. It's a fun one, it's not too deep. It is a bit predictable at times. There's plenty of plot holes. It's definitely not the best film ever, but I would say it's a hidden gem and definitely an underrated one to check out. We get the usual tropes of a camp slasher. We get the masked killer, we get the gory kills, we get the element of mystery to it as well, and of course that classic Friday the 13th-esque summer cabin setting. Next up is a Mexican horror film called Tigers Are Not Afraid. A young girl ends up living on the streets by herself. When her mother disappears one day, she ends up joining a gang of other children who don't have parents, or maybe their parents are a bit more neglectful, and they live on the streets and provide for each other. Unfortunately, with living on the streets comes a lot of danger. This is a crime fantasy horror film, so very genre bending. It does take some really unexpected turns. Basically, the whole cast are children, which is really impressive because all of the performances are incredible, so raw and so full of so much emotion. It's definitely a very hard-hitting film. It's the kind of horror film that's not scary, as in like the boo scary sense. It's more like real life scary, and that's just what makes things even more terrifying. This film is an emotional roller coaster. There are some really heartwarming times, but there are also some really tragic events too. The next film is definitely more popular, but I do like to throw some cheesy 80s recommendations in where I can. So the film is The Stuff. A popular new dessert has just hit the market called The Stuff. This is kind of an ice cream-like dessert and everyone is becoming obsessed with it. Marketing is everywhere. It's colourful, it's delicious, but is it safe? We follow FBI agents as they start to investigate this suspicious new product. This is a typical over-the-top, wacky, cheesy 80s film. We can definitely see commentary on things like advertisements, marketing and consumerism. Because of how this product was marketed to the audience, they were just desperate to have it. It was said to have 0 calories, but to be super filling, so people could just eat it as a meal. We get to see some really grotesque imagery, some kind of body horror involving The Stuff. The next film is Who Invited Them? A couple have just moved in to their new home, so they decide to throw a housewarming party, but as the night comes to an end, there's one mysterious couple that is still hanging around and they're not even sure if they invited them. This is one of those films where it's just like you're screaming at the TV to stop being a people pleaser. It's one of those films that just makes you feel really uncomfortable from the interactions, kind of like a reverse home invasion. There's people invading their home, very similar to films like Funny Games. It does also give me the same vibe as Speak No Evil, so if you like those kind of things, then you may enjoy this one. I do prefer those films, but I do think this is a really good entry to that kind of subcategory. Although we've seen so many like it, it just never gets old to me. It's definitely more of a thriller with horror elements, but we do also get to see a little bit of gore. I really appreciate the shorter runtime on this film because it is only 80 minutes long, as I do think this film probably would have suffered with a longer runtime. so the shorter one was just perfect. It's not anything crazy, but it's one that keeps the anxiety high and it keeps you tense and on the edge of your seat and just feeling really kind of cringe and uncomfortable. I'm throwing in another 80s pick, and that is The Mutilator. Ed and his friends are college students and they're on their fall break. They decide to travel to his father's remote island property for a fun getaway. What Ed doesn't expect is that his father is out for revenge because Ed actually got in an accident when he was a child with his mother, resulting in her death. Although Ed was only a child when this happened and it's been so long, his father definitely hasn't gotten over it. This is a fun, typical 80s wacky slasher film. There are some really fun and creative kills using different instruments. We don't just get one weapon, we get all sorts. There's also a really annoying song in this film that will get stuck in your head for days. I definitely think what makes this film stand out amongst so many other slasher films from the 80s is just the unique and creative kills with all of the different weapons. My last recommendation is a French horror film called High Tension. Two friends decide to take a trip away together, but when they get there, they soon realise that this won't be such a relaxing getaway and instead a fight for survival. I think the best way to describe this film is raw and brutal. It's really entertaining watch. I personally did find it quite predictable. I'm not sure if it's meant to be predictable and just like an inevitable film, or if it is supposed to have that element of mystery. But for me personally, I did kind of find it very obvious where this was going. But saying that, I did still really enjoy it, and it's one that I would rewatch. This is another slasher film with a short runtime, not so wacky and over the top like some of the other ones on this list, but definitely one to add to your watch list if you're looking for something a bit more brutal. Definitely a more darker and disturbing film, one of the more serious ones on this list. Some of the kills are really creative as well. So that's it for my Shudder recommendations today. Let me know what your favourites on this list are and if you've seen any or if any of them are on your watch list. Also, let me know some of your favourite underrated picks on Shudder, because I will add them to my ever-growing watch list. If you would like bonus content and to join my film club, then head over to my Patreon. You can join for free, or there is also a paid tier, but you can be part of the film club for free, where we watch and discuss different horror films every week. As always, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again in another one very soon.